Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. This podcast, as always, brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Level, I got to be honest. I had.
Well, I hope that you're always honest with me.
I am. I've never understood that phrase either because it implies that you're not. Sure. Okay, Level, I'm being honest again. I had plans to have poppers, little, and scare you a little bit because this is episode 100. So I was gonna pop off.
Oh, okay, but then you felt like, okay, this isn't the right time.
It's not. Yeah. This is their 100th.
The vibe is bad.
Not a good vibe to do the little party poppers and
you know what I'll let you do.
Oh,
you know what I'll let you do.
Okay,
I will let you purchase me a sopapilla on Friday night.
Okay, I will do that. You know what?
Okay,
we can celebrate with some
I will allow that.
Okay, we will celebrate that way, and hopefully that will be a pre-celebration for some better times on a Saturday in Fort Worth because it was a rough one this past Saturday. Level, where you want to start? Trenches.
It was one of the strangest games. I mean, I've been going to the games in that stadium for a long time in a professional capacity, as a student, as a young married dude trying to figure out life. Still trying to figure that out a while ago.
Let's say you got to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going on. Geez, I'm at about, this is 30th year of going to games over in that stadium, and that was just a weird. The result was strange, but everything, it was just a weird vibe. I can't put my finger on it. I said something to our ex compadre Aaron Dickens last week, who used to work with me at Raymar Communications. They're doing Tech Talk, and you maybe have done shows with him before too.
Several, sure.
And I said to him in a conversation that I was having with him, I said, would it surprise you if either one of these teams was up 28-0 semi-early in this game? And he thought I was kind of crazy. He's like, well, not that. I mean, no, not 28 or whatever. And I was like, okay. And I that's not what happened. No. But I guess that my point of asking that was, is something weird going on, or something like, because I think if people would have been less surprised if Texas Tech would have jumped out 28-0. They would have been like, okay, Baylor's drank the jug of I quit, and now whatever, and then. If Baylor was up, people would have certainly been surprised. And it's not exactly how it played out, but I mean, it was 24-21, and then it was 52-21.
Yeah.
So point being, it was just a weird game. There were things that went on that you did that you haven't done all year. Sports, man, and I wish I had an answer for it. We'll get into kind of how you got to that point.
Yeah.
But dang, man, it was just it was a weird game is what it was, and it was a weird feeling in the stadium, and it just felt like everything was just flat.
Yeah. From the get-go.
From the get-go. And it's not the crowd's job to be all hyped up and motivated and everything like that. You got to give them something to cheer for. but it just never felt like, man, this is fun. I'm glad I'm here. It was like, because I mean, I'm like you, man. At the tail end of that deal, that is the last place I wanted to be. If I could have changed the channel or been like, all right, guys, well, I've seen enough. I think I'm going to go ahead and beat the traffic. I would have done it, and you would have too. But we were there to the bitter end, and
Obligated. Yeah.
obligated, yeah, obligated to be there till the
Yes.
bitter end. And it wasn't a lot of fun. And part of it was because I dislike losing to them greatly. I don't like that it's let's call it, I'm just gonna go unfiltered here for a second. So buckle up. I don't like losing to Baylor because I don't like a lot of what's gone on there over the years. I don't like
Of
that
course. Yeah.
we are, everybody is praying before and after games, and then there's some things that are said, and I'm like, I experienced this last year when the Red Raider basketball team was there, and we all bowed our heads in prayer before the game, and then there's students right behind me that are saying some of those awful, vile things to one of your basketball players that, and so the whole thing just doesn't sit well with me. I don't. It's. But that's a different conversation. But
Sure.
I dislike losing to them greatly, and I've never. And so that's part of why I've just like you take it harder. And heck, man, half of your coaches came from there. And so that's the last team that they want to lose to too. So it's like, of course, that's the team that you just kind of no show on.
But
That you
why does it
just,
happen twice to that team?
yeah,
That's
no,
I think
I get it.
there's so many things with this game that are just
I think the first time it happened to
baffling.
you because they were better than you. I don't believe that to be the case this time,
Correct.
although maybe they are. Let's look at,
Look at their
didn't probably,
losses.
yeah, we probably didn't do a good enough job of
Sure.
like they've played four of the best teams in the Big 12 conference, and I include Utah in that group because at the time that they played them,
Yeah.
Utah and Utah had Cam Rising. That was the game that he got hurt. Colorado has proven to be that. Iowa State has proven to be that, and BYU has proven to be that. So, like they've seen the cream of the crop here for the most part
Right.
of the league, and they were really close in some of that. And heck, we're almost beat BYU with like 8 or 9 guys suspended. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe you're not as good as we had hoped you were. Maybe Baylor's a lot better. Because if you go look at, here's what else. And if there's any Baptists out there that were offended, I really don't care. And two, I would say, I'm going to say something nice about your program now. But if you look at their schedule, there's a path to where they could conceivably win the rest if they play and are getting better.
Well, if they play like they did Saturday,
The meat of their schedule is over. On paper, it's very manageable. What do they do with it? I'm not real sure, but so
yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know, but this is why sports are like the kind of the girlfriend that we know that's not real good for us, that we can't quit her. And yet we just kind of like, no, okay, I'll still keep going out with you, even though it's not best for you.
Sure,
it's not best for your all the good things you've got going on. But it's like, dang it, I just can't quit her. That's how sports are sometimes. And like we'll be right back in the saddle, emotionally invested come Saturday. But this is kind of what you get sometimes, and I don't have an answer for it. Damnedest thing I've ever seen.
I mean, and finger pointing galore on Saturday. You can point to almost
everybody.
Every facet.
Everybody.
Special teams is the worst we've seen them in. I mean, in the Joey McGuire era,
and they've been so good.
Yes, they have. They've been a plus for this team.
Yeah, or so clean to this point.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Defense looked like something we saw when Patrick Mahomes was on campus. Behren Morton looked confused the entire game. He missed guys open down the field over and over. Never saw. We've talked so much about your positivity of complimentary football in the last few weeks and being able to first go get turnovers and score turnovers, but you had zero complimentary football because every time you finally got a little momentum and scored on offense, your defense lets them go 80 yards down the field and score. You got your butt just absolutely handled in the trenches. It was just one of those games, and the energy of the team, the environment, everything was just dead. So, man, it was baffling because that was the last thing I think anybody expected to see. Maybe Dave Aranda expected to see that, but I don't think anybody in Waco or Lubbock expected that game to go the way we saw it on Saturday. So rough, but there's a ton of questions, as you and I have a ton of questions.
I mean, speaking of, I don't know if Dave Aranda's got a lot of one-liners in his press conferences. Like I listen to a lot of them. And I think at some point after the game on Saturday, he talked about, he was asked if he was dancing in the locker room, and he's like, no, nobody wants to see that. But in the midst of some other answer, he's like, it's like the old guy that just stands outside and yells at the cloud. And I was like, huh, I don't know if I've ever seen that, heard that. Yeah, whatever. But I don't know if he knew what he was looking for, I guess is what my point. But yeah, man, damn. And against those guys too.
And against those guys.
But you know what? You know what? Any Baptists out there listening, or any Baylor, part of the, what is it, the line? Is that the
Baylor
folks
line,
out there? You know what it's good to know? It's good to know that Texas Tech is your Super Bowl. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that you've chosen to play your best games in 2 of the last 3 years against the Red Raiders in Lubbock. So
unfortunately,
you know what? Self high five for being Baylor's Super Bowl. How about that?
Man. All right. We've got
okay. All right. Sorry.
Handful of questions.
I'll quit.
No, I like it. I like it.
Okay. All right.
I just hope we have some for TCU on Saturday. Okay. Which we will get into in a moment. This one's from Carl Level. It says, does Morton have the ability to win a game if and when he has to? Shootout or drive at the end to win? Taj feels like he's been protecting this team and him with his 25 to 30 attempts per game.
Well, he did in Lawrence, Kansas last year.
True.
He had to make some throws and go win that game. I mean, yeah, that's. But I think it's a fair question because I think at some point, yeah, he's going to have to. He will have to be the reason why you won. Yeah, I think that's very fair. If you're going to win big. If you're going to win big, if you're going to push through and get to the 8 or 9 win category at this point in the season, if you're going to stay and try to rattle some off with some stiff tests coming up, and now you're looking at what, 3 of your next 4 on the road in this next stretch.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have to be a reason why you win some of those if you are to win them. Yeah, I would agree. As good as Taj is. And that's why there's a difference between like somebody like a Taj and like an Ashton Genty.
Yeah.
I don't know if Taj is good enough to go win you the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and the point being is, he had his numbers, he had his touchdown, he had his carries,
right,
and all that, and it didn't matter a bit.
Yeah, that was the first game you'd lost in 16 tries with he's gone over 100.
You got blown out.
Yeah.
And so that, whereas like the dude from Boise State, he could touch it 25 times, run for nearly 300 and score 4 touchdowns because he's like getting in the end zone and all that stuff. And that's not like a knock on your running back. It's just different. It's very different. And your QB can affect the game, positively, quite a bit more with fewer touches and all that can affect it negatively too, depending on what happens with some of those throws. So, but yeah, I think to that point, I think Behren, I'd like he's done it, and I think I'd like to see him do it more. How about that?
Absolutely, yeah, it'd be nice. Mark asks, why doesn't the media hold Joey more accountable. Seems like softball questions and rambling. Where are the fans' representation of our frustration? I would kind of want to ask Mark, what do you want them to ask? I guess is Mark,
Yeah,
if you want to follow
like,
up next week, you can tell
yeah,
us what
and
specifically.
we obviously do a coach's show with the public every Thursday. Maybe Mark doesn't live in Lubbock and able to attend.
Yeah.
I mean, he's asked, and maybe we just have different definitions of softball. And look, I'm not perfect. I've been criticized for not being tough enough over the years. I work for the Texas Tech Sports Network. In a lot of these situations, it's not my job to be like an asshole or a jackass to somebody. And like, but I think my line of questioning after the game the other day was, did you see this coming? What they were able to run the ball quite a bit on you. What happened? I think we touched on the special teams gaffes again. I asked him why Behren was in the game so late because I thought that was a bit odd. And then I asked him, I was like, okay, what do you tell your kids after a game like that? And so that was my line of questioning. I know from post game and then even earlier in the week, he's been asked, what is the, why'd you run a 3-man front on defense? Do you wish you would have switched that up? What's the deal with the special teams? Why does Micah Hudson not play more? I mean, so there's a lot of question and answer going on. So I don't know what Mark maybe wanted to know. I get that he probably submitted that question and while very frustrated, and he's probably still frustrated, and I certainly get it. But
Probably.
yeah, I just it's like when you lose, everybody stinks. Everybody's frustrated. Nobody's doing their job well. I get it. Because it's like for poor as my answer here would have been, or for poor as the questions that Mark thinks that are asked, we could easily also say, that's a poor question into our show, whatever.
Sure.
And again, everybody could theoretically think that they're right.
Mhm.
But when you lose, my point is when you lose, everything is terrible.
Nothing tastes as good. Yeah, it's
yeah,
how it works.
the sun's not shining as bright. And I mean, losing it's the worst, man. I hate it. And especially as I've stated here, I hate losing to those guys.
Losing to a rival is
Yeah, it's not a lot of fun because unlike the Cincinnatis or the Arizona States or the Arizonas, you probably, Mark, you and I probably both have people that we know that went to Baylor or that are Baylor fans, and they're probably telling you about it, just like I'm getting it. And I haven't heard from some people in years or months or whatever, and it's all of a sudden it's like the Bears, just embarrassed Texas Tech, and it's like all of a sudden I get some.
Who are you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm like, oh man, hadn't heard from you in a while. Good to know you're still alive and kicking. That whole deal. So
Thanks for
anyway,
saying hi.
I don't. Yeah, so I don't know what to tell you there. College markets aren't typically going to rake anybody over the coals and be like vile or vicious with their. I mean, if you think this is ever going to be, if you want it to be like New York or Philadelphia or whatever, I mean, it's never going to be that way. But I think that Joey is asked about scheme. He's asked about players. He's asked about. I mean, he said it himself, like, I didn't do a good enough job. I heard Tim DeRuyter and Zach Kitley both go, like, I've got to be better. I made calls that I wish I could have back, and all that stuff. And so, anyway, I could keep going, but I think you get the idea. But Mark, I appreciate the input. I'm just trying to give you like a total answer there. Cause I know Choice does too. We hear this often. It gets posted on message boards. It's on Twitter all the time of like how, the Lubbock media sucks and the Lubbock media is this or that. And I know that maybe some folks at Tech even think that. I have no idea, but yeah, who knows? So,
Well, speaking of media and sucks and all that, Paolo pretty frustrated too. He says 2 questions. Will Texas Tech get over this hump where either coming off of a bye or having a special night that isn't ruined by Baylor. Also, you media folks still want to be trying to make bowl predictions when the team can't even handle Baylor. I put a question mark, even though it was kind of a statement. So,
Okay. Well, two things. Who sent that in?
that was Paolo.
Okay, because Paolo, I would tell you that you are previous to this past one, you were 2-0 coming off of bye weeks. So you had, I mean, so now you're 2-1 coming off of bye weeks. You'd also, I guess, 2-0 in bowl games. Speaking of bowl projections, you were 2-0 in bowl games. I get everybody wants to be mad and like, and like kind of, but you are 5-2 and 3-1 in the league, and you're 1 win away from actually being bowl eligible. So at the next win, and I guess everybody that can make those bowl projections if they want. We haven't done that here that I'm aware of. No,
not you and I. No.
Okay, yeah. And you're still you can laugh, and until you suffer your next loss, you're still very much in the conference race. Now, when you suffer your next loss, whether that be this Saturday, the following Saturday, a Saturday in November, you're still, and until that happens, you're very much in control of kind of what goes on. And obviously there's an extra importance on the game in Ames, Iowa, because of their standing, and that may be a win that you need to get to maintain that status. But yeah, but yeah, they had been 2-0 coming off of bye weeks previously, and it's very clear, Paolo, to your point, it's very clear that the last two losses versus Baylor, you'd kind of been building up to this, and then you just fall way short.
Right.
And that is a common theme, to your point, sir. And I think that we know who won the last week's bye week, if you will, because both teams were on a bye, and Baylor clearly was way better than you were. They outcoached you, outplayed you, out-efforted you, all the above. And they deserve the credit for that.
Yeah. Depending when you're listening to this podcast, this will depend how you feel about hearing something like this. But what you said, the 5-2 thing, the 3-1 thing, like if you're listening to this on a Monday, you're probably super mad and like, I don't want to hear that right now. If it's gotten to Thursday or something, it's like you let it cool a little bit. Be like, okay, you are 5-2. Hey, you did just come off of a 4-game winning streak. Maybe we should see one more game before we, fully jump ship and say this team is one of the worst in the Big 12 or anything like that. Or I mean, I heard a ton early in the week of and even on the Double T 97.3 Coors Light post game show. Those are always an adventure of I don't even know where I could see another win for Texas Tech. I look at the schedule now, and and it's the reaction right after the game, and you get mad. But I mean, if you step back a little bit, you still are 5-2 and 3-1.
It's the same thing that was said after the ACU game.
Sure.
And there were people that wrote, and I saw plenty of this on the Book of Faces and or Facebook to other, and on the Twitters and all the stuff. They're not winning 3 or 4 more games. Well, so it's a week to week sport, and I wish I had an answer for it. It sucks. You were bad, and if it's a body of work of bad, then you got hard and fast, and people may in fact be held accountable with their job. Okay, whether it's a position coach, a coordinator, head coach, whatever. That's the sport. That's the business that we're all in. But so but and this is the beauty of the passion of college football, because people do care. They do get angry, and they do wear it. They are irrational, and all those things, and that's just part of it. That's I mean, there's if I showed you a rational fan base, then I would also tell you that they're not passionate, and I'm not sure that there's many of those out there that exist at most Power 4 schools.
Yeah, I was about to say
there's not many rational fan bases, and it's what's funny is like you and I deal with some of this locally and everything, and yet it doesn't even come close to the kind of crazy that some of these other places deal with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So, um, another question level. This one on the, of course, the Micah Hudson front. This one is from a different Mark. He says, level, what is the attitude of Micah Hudson right now? He seems to be playing better and playing a little more, but do you think we're going to be able to keep him around in the offseason?
Yeah, he's a Mahomes brand ambassador. I think his attitude is the least of anybody's worries about what's going on right now. He works hard. I think he would if he could talk to the media, I think he would tell you, "Hey, dude, I get it." Like on kind of where I'm at right now. He's a true freshman. I think that everybody's been hammered home with the kid at Ohio State and Alabama that are unicorns, and most kids are just not this way. I think you kind of see the microcosm of what Micah Hudson is in a span of about 15 plays on Saturday versus Baylor.
Yeah.
Pass right to him, drop, and then several plays later, it's like this freakishly one-handed catch is like, oh my gosh. And that kind of sums
Yeah.
up Micah Hudson right now.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. He's a young player. He's on track, and I'd be surprised if he's not a starter next year.
Sure.
I think people want him to play more, and I think he'd love to play more. But I think he's playing some, and
I think he played more on Saturday than we've seen, and that's probably because you're coming off of a bye week. I think
people are also confused as to what position that he plays. He plays Z, which is what Caleb Douglas plays, and that's as far as the route tree and some of the concepts and like a lot of the modern day passing or the air raid passing and all that. That's one of the easier ones to learn. People are like, man, why don't they move him to this or that? And it would only like add more onto his plate right now. But the flip side is he plays Caleb Douglas's position, and it's like, I don't know, but I mean, Caleb Douglas has been pretty good. Yes.
I would say he's been really good and been, I mean, super consistent, but my goodness, the last couple games you've had, he's been one of your best players.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And you say hasn't been super consistent because you mixed in a few drops,
Yeah.
but he's been pretty special in the last two games, actually.
Easily one of your best four weapons on your team right now.
Oh, yeah, like, without a doubt. Yep.
Easily. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
and this is not anti-Micah Hudson.
No, it's just
I get it.
praising Caleb Douglas. Yeah.
And hopefully the day comes, because I understand these questions. Hopefully the day comes where you have more than the one 5-star every once in a couple of decades type scenario. So it isn't stuck out like a sore thumb. And I'd be willing to say that I bet Micah Hudson feels a lot of this pressure from people asking more.
I bet he does.
About him and all these things. And it's a lot to live up to and the whole deal. But hopefully he's more of the norm around here than just like this isolated big time recruiting win that you end up with. So anyway, but yeah, I people are going to continue to ask about Mike Hudson. I certainly understand that, but you kind of saw all of it in a span of about 10 minutes the other day.
All right, one random one before we get to a couple of basketball questions. This one from Dylan. Level, why do our players not wear their mouthpieces? Seems like there are several that play the plays without the mouthpieces in. That's
a football problem. I mean, you'll see plenty of guys with that mouthpiece just flopping around and dangling. I don't know. I wonder. Choice knows this about me. I wonder why they wear different colors that aren't anything resembling their uniform.
Sure.
I wonder why some people have one hanging from their face mask and they also got one tucked into their helmet, and neither one of them's in their mouth. I wonder, are they talking back to the teammate and going, okay, are they communicating like with the call or whatever, and they forget to put it in before the snap? Yeah, I wonder a lot about the whole mouthpiece thing, probably way too much. So I'm the wrong guy to ask. But this isn't a Texas Tech issue. Go watch any high school, college, or pro game on TV, in person, whatever. This is a football-wide conversation. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Kelly wants to dip us into basketball a little bit, so we'll ask his questions, a couple of them. First, Level, is there any truth to the rumor that Elijah Hawkins is hurt? Second one is, what is your prediction for our final record? Or sorry, what is your prediction on who will win the Big 12 basketball season? And then there is a football one I'll finish with. So who's going to
Jeez,
win in Big 12?
already asking for who's going to win the basketball league, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as injuries go, have not heard anything about it. And Grant, this Big 12 Media Days are this week. So if Grant McCaslin tells anybody about that, or tells anybody in the media that in Media Days, I guess we can cover that on next week's podcast.
True.
And their first game is, from the time that we're taping this, is just a little over 2 weeks away.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll all, so we'll see. And as far as winning the, I'd probably, I wouldn't say Kansas.
They're the number one team in the country, Level.
Yeah, I would probably tell you that that's probably Houston again, until somebody takes that thing away from them.
I mean, you're
not winning there.
Top 10 teams to pick from.
Yeah, you do. But I'm not. Yeah, I'd probably say, and again, injuries can alter this. Speaking of that conversation that we had, they can alter the course of the race, and they likely will.
Yeah.
Because that's what derailed Houston's NCAA tournament, run last year. Jamal Shed, and
yeah,
they had some guys get dinged up. Harold Arsenault was hurt in most of the year. And all that. Obviously, Kansas was ravaged by injuries. The Red Raiders were ravaged by injuries. But yeah, I'd tell you that I'd pick Houston, and I'd tell you that I'd really watch out for Iowa State. And then Tech will be kind of a sneaky, under the radar like team. I don't know if I would say that there's enough there to where I'd pick them to win the league.
Sure.
But they'll be kind of not because they're not one of those top 5 or one of those 5 top 10 teams, I should say.
Right.
And yet they're right there on the, it's like, it's going to be, the Cincinnati will be ranked and all that, but then it's like it's Texas Tech, BYU, Kansas State in some other order. So if one of those teams really jumps up and finishes much higher than everybody thought, not going to shock me a bit.
I would probably expect that. Just because it never goes as scripted. So
Nope.
I'd probably expect one of those teams.
Just like the football thing's not going as scripted.
What?
Yeah, shocker. I know.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and finish up with TCU. Tell us about TCU, Level. This is a team that just came off of a 13-7 win. That's right, 13-7 win over Utah in Salt Lake City, but it's also one that has been extremely inconsistent. I mean, you think Texas Tech's been inconsistent this year. TCU has been all over the map in terms of types of games they've played, in terms of wins and losses. So what do you anticipate? What is this TCU team? Give us a little preview of those guys.
Well, yeah, they are inconsistent. I mean, and I don't know which version of them do you get on Saturday. Their biggest issue has been turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
They've had a 6 turnover game this year. They've had a 4 turnover game this year, but they can't get out of their own way on some Saturdays, and it's led to just some crazy results, a lot of frustration. Unlike previous TCU teams, they probably throw the ball quite a bit better than I am used to. But they also are not running it anywhere near as well as I'm used to. They're only averaging 100 yards rushing on the ground. They've had a variety of different running backs that they've tried to utilize, but Josh Hoover, he's got a trio of wideouts that I think that is I don't know if it's Colorado good when all those Colorado guys are healthy, but it's close. I mean, Jack Besh, Savion Williams, and J.P. Richardson are phenomenal, and they will make you pay, especially after the catch. They've got size and measurables and all these things. I don't think TCU's offensive line is particularly as good as when we were used to. Maybe that's leading to some of the run game issues. But again, they're throwing. I mean, Josh Hoover's one of the top quarterbacks in the country and in the Big 12 throwing it per game. And then defensively, they are really good in the secondary. They have struggled up front. I think they're a bit younger up front, similar to maybe how the Red Raiders are. So we'll see. I don't think this will be an easy game to throw for Behren. It may be a manageable game for Taj, but like, what's the turnover aspect look like? But heck, man, if you show up and play special teams like you did against Baylor, maybe none of it matters. But if you play your typical special teams game, may give you a chance. But I bet this is a 38-34, 31-27 type game. And hopefully the Red Raiders have more than the purple folks.
Yes, we hope. And, if you play any game like you did against Baylor, you're not going to win that game or any other games this year. But you've played several and found a way to win several, and it's hard to, go backwards. But hopefully you are able to return to some of those winning ways, and you've had plenty of winning ways this year. If you asked me this question before, I would have said Texas Tech's clearly a better team than TCU. If you asked me before last week, but it's hard to get out of the recency bias, and that's what you got to get away from. And hopefully that team, I think you are going to see, Level, my opinion, I think you will see a very motivated and fired up Texas Tech team. Now, if that,
I would hope so.
I mean, I can't imagine seeing them flat.
Because what you have in this new version of the Big 12, when you're looking for meaningful games, you just played one of them and we're just not good. This is another one, and so maybe this is the perfect time to be going to Fort Worth to play TCU. Get away from home, get somebody that there's a lot of crossover here. With, I'm sure a lot of these players know each other, and there's a lot of familiarity with the staffs and all that stuff. And maybe that's the best thing for you right now. TCU may be saying the same thing. I don't know, but there's only so many of those meaningful games for you in the Big 12 conference left. I mean, I would say that in most cases, Baylor, TCU, and Oklahoma State are kind of the most meaningful ones. Because they're the close proximity. You're the old Big 12 schools together.
So. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, and so maybe Houston means something to you to a certain extent.
Maybe.
But I just think those three are a bit different than others, and you've got one staring you in the face right now.
Level, happy 100th. It wasn't as happy as I was hoping for, but we've made it through 100 of these episodes. Appreciate you, and hopefully we get to celebrate a win over your hometown team this weekend.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate all the questions being submitted, even if you're angry, and even if you're angry at us, it's all love. We love what we do. We're honored to get to do it. We all want to win. I get frustrated. Choice gets frustrated too, and so appreciate you for those submitting. And we're all talking here. It's like I said, all love, and appreciate the folks at Cantex Roofing. And I can't wait to have my Sopapilla choice. So with that, appreciate it.
All right, man. That is Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. This has been the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.